Hi, I'm Skip Paul from Wishing Stone Farm. We're located at the very tip of a town called Little Compton, Rhode Island, which is completely surrounded. We're a peninsula, so we're surrounded by water. We grow 55 acres of, we manage 55 acres. We only grow on about 35 acres every year because we're always putting cover crops on things. And we're big into greenhouse tomatoes. We're big into interseeding, growing cover crops with cash crops. And we also have a component that we do a little bit of conventional growing just to complement and allow ourselves to grow in this southern climate, if you want to call it that.
I'm your host, Andy Chamberlain, and I take you behind the scenes to learn how farmers are building their business in sustainable agriculture. These farmer-to-farmer interviews cover a wide range of topics from cropping systems, marketing channels, lifestyle decisions, and lessons learned along the way. Today's episode comes to you from Little Compton, Rhode Island, where we visit with Skip Paul of Wishing Stone Farm. He shares all kinds of tips and tricks he's learned over the 40-plus year career as a farmer growing mixed vegetables and fruit largely sold at farmers markets. We cover greenhouse production to have tomatoes in early May. This includes grafting, heating, steaming, and transitioning the tunnels over to winter greens. He shares how they grow both conventional and organic crops, interseeding brassicas, cover crop incorporation with a high-speed disc, stone barriers, flail mowers, and power harrows. So this episode covers both production and marketing and equipment. I hope you enjoy it. This podcast is sponsored by the University of Vermont Extension and the Vermont Vegetable and Berry Growers Association. Funding for this episode and the next few were from the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food, and Markets from the Specialty Crop Block Grant. That has ended. However, I was able to batch these episodes in the winter and capture some recordings to get us through the summer. Future funding may be slightly focused based on grant opportunities that I have available, but you can also help support the show and keep it going by making a donation at thefarmershare.com. Any amount is appreciated. Thanks so much for listening.
My name is Skip Paul. I run Wishing Stone Farm, and we are down in a town called Little Compton, Rhode Island. If you can imagine that Rhode Island's like a hand. It's got a bunch of fingers sticking out in the water, and we can look out our windows here and we can see the ocean is only about a quarter mile away. And we're basically a peninsula here. And so the ocean, one of the things we learned pretty quickly is that the ocean is an amazing heat sink. It helps us out picking crops late into the summer. Or even into the winter. I think when we first came here, we barely got harvesting. We had to harvest broccoli pretty much before Thanksgiving, or it would get burned up by a cold snap. And except for this year, we've been harvesting broccoli about Christmas time every year, just because the ocean is so warm for us. And just the opposite to that, though, is that the spring, the ocean is cooled down, and then in the spring, when everybody can be planting, tomatoes outside their farms in Connecticut and Massachusetts, the ocean is really too cold. We'll have we don't have really freezes, but we have cold snaps that just make it really tough for plants to get started. So as a result of that, we started building greenhouses right from the first. We were one of the first farmers to actually start doing greenhouse tomatoes, and we evolved into, in about 10 or 12 years of doing greenhouse tomatoes, the new zeitgeist was to actually start grafting tomatoes. And when we first did it, we couldn't find any of these specialized grafting base tomatoes, so we actually used a Sweet 100. It's just a regular old cherry tomato, and that's basically what a grafted tomato is. It's grafted on a type of cherry tomato that grows wild in the jungles of, down south. Yeah, I don't know where they're from, but they're from warm climates. And so we started out with just, an acre or two, and we realized that marketing was going to be a big problem for us. Whole Foods was just, our bread and circus was just getting started back then. That was what turned into Whole Foods eventually. But there wasn't even a store in Rhode Island at the time. So we were trying to wholesale produce up at the big market in Providence, and quickly found out that we didn't really have the packaging or the knowledge how to get things on in a timely manner. And so we had an opportunity to buy a farm stand in town, and which was half their income was from chocolate and cigarettes and everything else. And we said, I don't think this is quite what we want to do. So luckily, back in the day, adding a little deli to it wasn't too out of the realm of possibilities, because nobody was worrying about your septic system too much. So we did that for about 11 years. We'd had a farm stand with a big deli and doing all that and trying to and at that time we built a kitchen at our farm. And again, it was a time when nobody was really looking at septic systems too much. So they were able to build this kitchen pretty inexpensively and had a full septic system for it. And that began the foray into understanding that, value-added products is a huge benefit for any farm. It's just, you can take a handful of basil and sell it for $2, or you can take it, add some olive oil and some good quality Parmesan and some walnuts and sell it for $12, an 8-ounce container. So we quickly started trying to evolve that, pick and choose what would have a good shelf life. That's the other big thing for us, is like so many of we make about 8 and 9 different types of pesto, but all our pestos we freeze, just because the pesto is like an apple. You take a bite out of it, and then an hour or two later it's turning brown. So pesto doesn't like sitting on its own. So we freeze certain things. So we make chimichurri, a bunch of things that we offer frozen. And we bring them up to the farmers markets in Providence as well. The frozen items are allowed to keep it in a chest freezer with a temperature, bunch of ice packs in there. So we started out with a farm stand, and about that time, the blurb was that CSAs were the thing of the future, and that people were starting CSA. And so we did the same thing. We started learning how to market it, put out brochures and get people to sign up for it. The problem for us is that we're on a peninsula. And so there's only so many directions that people can come easily to our peninsula. So we found the CSA was a hard thing to really build up to what we thought would be our profit margin, which would be to get up around 600 or 700 people. We never quite get about 350 or so. And then we did that for a number of years. It was fairly successful, but we always found it kind of a hassle to do the box thing. And then when people started not re-signing up for it, we sent out a brochure to these people saying, hope you don't mind us asking, but why didn't you sign up for it again? The produce was a problem on our side. And I'd say 95% of the people returned our questions, and it was all about them, that their lives in the modern zeitgeist of being a modern professional, running a family and a house, they just, came to the Thursday to pick up their CSA, and they still had 2 heads of lettuce and 5 pounds of carrots still there, and so they felt like they weren't utilizing their investment in the CSA. And so we went on with that for a while, and then we started doing farmers markets in Providence. We started doing a really big farmers market in Providence. We built that up. When we first opened up in Providence doing farmers markets back in the late 80s, we were happy to do $300 at a good selling tomatoes. And so once we started doing farmers markets in Providence, we came up with this idea that, what if we made the CSA, because one of the biggest problems people have with the CSA, it's like, I want to go on vacation for 2 weeks. I don't want to find my uncle to come pick up my CSA share. So we were one of the first people to create what was called a credit card CSA. So we just took one of those credit card companies. I think it's, I've forgotten the name of the one that we use, but they made a credit card, and then you could put the amount of money on that credit card. So people would, sign up, and we gave them 10% off. Any money they gave us, and from November 1st to the 15th of March, we would give them 10% on their money. And then they could use that whenever they wanted to, either at the farmer's market in Providence or here at the farm store. And so that took off. I mean, people really liked that. I mean, we were the first people to do it. But as it evolved over time, it was kind of, it was kind of wealthier people who were not too attentive to keeping the card. And they would show up and say, I just forgot my card today. Well, then we had to go through 7 pages of numbers and trying to find out who they were. And they entered into it became such a hassle by the 7th year we did it that I was part of my wife's retirement package that we didn't have to do the enormous amount of paperwork. By that time, we were doing, $4,000 or $5,000 on Saturday out in Providence, and we felt we were making all the money we were going to make up there anyway. And the year we got rid of the CSA credit card thing, our income didn't change one bit. And so it was a lot less hassle. And so speaking more about the retail side of it, I'd say one of the most important things that has really worked well for us is we started this farmers market in Providence, and we had the bylaws created such that all the voting members in charge of how the actual farmers market ran would have to be 65% farmers. So we invited people in who had made soap or that made, chickpea salad or something like that. But the core of the people that run that were farmers who were looking out for the farmer's point of view. Because we heard a lot of stories from big farmers markets in Oregon where they started letting in food vendors, food trucks in, and then all of a sudden it's like Blue Apron. They don't have to make anything. They can pick up their food and just go home ready to eat that night. And that became a big problem out in Oregon and all those farmers markets out there. Once they let people in, they had no control of trying to get them out or bring them back down, so they weren't. So we learned that lesson pretty fast, and I think it's really worked to our benefit. So we're really a farmer run. It's part of our bylaws. I'd say anybody that's doing a farmer's market, it's really important that the farmers, it takes more work. You can hire a farm manager or a farmer's market manager, but you got to have the farmers doing the work and deciding who they let in, how that works. So that's been real important for us. Let's see, retail-wise also, we got rid of our farm stand after a while just because we realized that we made a hell of a lot of money from June through August, and then as soon as people went home, since we're a peninsula and a summer resort, that ended pretty quickly. And we set up a farm stand here at the home farm. And the advantage to that was that we were back where our kitchen was. And so when we opened up the farm stand at the farm, we were able to have that kitchen bring out fresh pizzas, just fresh soups. Everything became like this fresh invitation for fresh. We make like 12 different kinds of, another secret we found with our kitchen is not to do the things that make us the best bang for our buck. And so we found out that, I think a lot of people found this out the hard way, that bread is a really tough way to make money. When you're making your own bread, all the time and effort that went into making that bread, if you don't sell over 80% of that bread, sometimes you're losing money on the bread. And so we learned pretty quickly to cohort with different people, that really good bread companies that could give us bread that we can par bake and just bring it out fresh to the store. As far as the farm, we're managing about 55 acres of land. A lot of it I'd say 80% of it is land we've got from land trusts in town. There's a rule in town when a piece of property sells that 1% of the purchase price goes to the agricultural land trust, and they're buying up large pieces of land. And we were able to, over the time, network with the NRCS and get wells. That's one of our biggest problems, actually, farming-wise, is having water. We have very heavy soils here. And one of the things about very heavy soils is they don't tend to have many ponds. So we had no spring-fed ponds around here. So we have over, I think, 9 different wells at different places. That it's very important. I don't know what the people up north are finding out, but I think we've been basically in a predictable July drought for the last 15 to 18 years. I mean, certain ones are worse than others, but having these wells has been critical. And again, some of the wells are not that well fed by the water, and so some of them, we realize that we have to make a utilization of that well up to a certain point, knowing it's going to run out of water by July 28th. And so we grow certain crops that we can push that far. Because when we get to about September 15th or 20th, there's always a rainstorm. The weather patterns change, and we can be back into other crops. But yeah, well water is a really important part of our how we do things. And it's all well water, so we don't have the problem with FSMA that a lot of people do. We have, at this point, about 14 greenhouses, some really big ones, some really small ones, but no greenhouse is just much smaller than 27 feet wide. We kind of feel that your best bang for your buck, if you're going to build a house, you might as well make it at least 32 feet wide. So a great proportion of our houses are 32 by 150-foot houses. And I'd say 60% of them, no, 70% of them are full of tomatoes that we're on this is February 6th today, and we're on our second batch of grafted tomatoes. We have to actually start the tomatoes this early in the season so that when the markets open up in May 10th, we can actually have a tomato May 10th. It costs us a fair amount of extra investment and heat and other things, but this time of year we're all bivouacked in one little greenhouse, and that we're not really spending that much heat to manage the greenhouse tomatoes. And the tomatoes are bumped up from little 95 count cells to a 3-inch pot to eventually to a 4-inch pot. So these pots are growing and moving up in size and root area for about 2 months. So we really aren't heating a greenhouse for actually growing tomatoes till about March 15th. So our heating costs are not that bad as it could be. So, but we're grafting now, and we started doing grafting because by the time we started grafting, we were about 15 to 18 years into tomato production. And these houses we're growing tomatoes from basically March 15th when we plant the houses to about September 15th. And the reason we have such a short year is that we want to get those greenhouses completely cleaned out so they can switch over to greens and lettuces and radicchios and arugula to go through the winter. And I've given a bunch of lectures about, winter growing, and one of the most salient points that one should keep in mind about winter growing is that as the sun is going down and giving you less and less energy to grow your plants, it's very important that pretty much 80% of what you're going to grow that year is in the ground, and the roots are starting to grow and build a framework by October 15th. So we're doing a fair amount of direct seeding, but we're also doing, I'd say, over 80% of our winter greens are started in plugs, just because we're so aware of that time frame. By October 15th, that plug has to be big enough to be pushed into the ground, and then we know we'll still have something to harvest, in the doldrums of the December. I think December 15th to February 28th is when I think Elliot Coleman categorized the Persephone effect, or the Persephone period, where the sunlight is just so low, it's almost not enough to make certain things grow. And another way we have adopted to that, about our last 8 greenhouses that we built in the last 10 years have all been reoriented or oriented east-west. Our first greenhouses were all oriented north-south. Now that we're doing big wintertime growing, that east-west house, the sun attacks that side of the house direct onto the plastic, and so the sunlight going in there is just, it's the best sunlight you can get.
A lot more of a magnifying effect.
Or it's just a direct, if you're east-west house, the sunlight, because the sun is so low in the sky, a lot of the light just hits that north-south plastic and just bounces right off.
Yeah.
Not a lot of it's going in to actually help grow the plants. So we're actually, another evolution of our winter growing is that we started having, everybody has a problem with, is chickweed. It's one of the chief bugaboos of winter growing, because chickweed doesn't need a lot of light and not a lot of fertility to grow twice as fast as anything you put in there as a plug or otherwise. And its roots are so massive, even though you're pulling it up, you're not quite ever getting rid of it. And so we were able, luckily enough, to find a boiler, a steamer boiler that was used actually in the flower business up in Canada about 12 years ago, and we've been using that. And now we have a Sioux steamer, which is much bigger investment. But the main reason we're doing it now is not only for the chickweed, but we used to have a lot of sclerotinia on the bottoms of our leaves, especially if the leaf was any touching the ground. And just the bacterium from the sclerotinia was just enough, and the light was just low enough that the sclerotinia became a big problem with all our head lettuce, even the small mini lettuces that Johnny sells. They were having problems. But when we started steaming our soils, when we were steamed down about 3 inches, even the sclerotinia was gone away. And one of the other things we do that's really worked out for us is that once we're shifting over from tomatoes to winter greens production, is that we're going through the greenhouses and loosening up the soil with the things that go down and jack up about 12 inches. So we're doing that stuff, and then we're actually we only put alfalfa meal for our fertilizer, because we've learned the hard way that any fertilizer that's from chicken shit or anything else has a higher level of salt buildup as an after effect of the delivery of the nutrients. So we just get really all we have to really do is just add some alfalfa meal to the winter greens, because they don't need a lot of nutrition since they're all being harvested smaller. And then once we've got the house completely ready, and we just bring out the steamer and we steam the whole thing. And so all we have to do is go in with a dibbler and just dibble and pop everything in. And it's been great. Another concept that's kind of important for us, and a lot of people who are doing a really good job with winter growing, they understand that, like, we grow a whole 1.5 tunnels full of spinach. And we do that because we can only harvest so much spinach at a time, but you can harvest a little bit at a time, and there's always something coming along. In other words, we have a savings bank of spinach. And by the time we get to February 15th, we're coming back around to the first one that we cut back in December 10th. And if the sunlights hit it right, or we stimulate it by cultivating it sometimes to get the nitrogen to raise a little bit, we can start harvesting spinach again. So the spinach is kind of the circular thing that we grow. The other thing we've learned about spinach is that don't ever close the greenhouse up. That's the only exception. Our greenhouses are basically open. Well, the spinach houses are open pretty much, unless it's really cold like it's been the last couple of weeks, down to 10 degrees. But for the most part, it's just the lettuce houses and the bok choy houses that we close up. And like most winter growers, we're just very attentive to the temperature that's going to be to that night. And so depending on if it's going to go down to 15 degrees, we'll pull 2 covers of reame over it. The other trick is getting in there and covering that reame before 3 o'clock in the afternoon so everything doesn't get frozen together. Another thing that's kind of unique for us is that we are a bifurcated farm, so we have some conventional lands that we grow, and that's really been important for us. I mean, I was a peach grower from the 5th year we started. I was trying to do them organically, and we did a great job growing these peaches. But that last 10 days, when the peach was fully ripe and the seed was making the outside color up, we would get brown rot. Like 80% of the fruit would just all of a sudden get brown rot, and we'd lose an imaginable amount of fruit to that disease. And when I really started studying what the conventional pesticides that were being used on peaches, I found out that the LD50, which is the measurement of how toxic a chemical is, like Crest toothpaste has an LD50 of like 1,200, whereas, some like, I don't know, Entrust has got an LD50 of 500 or something. So the lower the number, the more toxic it is. I found that the peach chemicals were very high LD50. They were, your days to harvest was almost a day. And so I began to realize that, there's a way if I communicate to people that if we want to have peaches, I'm going to have to do some conventional interaction to get these to the market. So now we have about a half an acre of peaches, about a quarter acre of plums. The up-and-coming fruit for us, it's really been popular. We're growing a lot more of it, is Asian pears. They don't need any kind of sprays, and people are becoming very popular. They're not eating them, and we sell them. We try to commit people at the farmer's market to understand that Asian pears, the biggest advantage of them is using them in salads, not to let it ripen on your kitchen counter, but to chop it up into a salad. So that's kind of been one of our biggest new, in the last 5 or 6 years, is learning things to make people's salads more interesting. So my son got into a radicchio exploration, and he talked to this guy, a seed grower in Italy, and got like 30 different kinds of radicchio. Some of the really light colored ones, they're almost all white. But the whiter the radicchio, the thinner the actual leaf is. And now we grow about, I don't know, we've fallen down to about 20 different ones, but we harvest them. And in trying to sell the whole radicchio, we found that was kind of a hard sell because they're kind of big. So now we take the radicchio and we break them up into individual leaves, and then we take a big container and mix all the leaves together. So you get all these color differentiations, and then we just put it in this beautiful cellophane bag, and the people go crazy for it. Plus, it has an amazing shelf life. I know everybody finds that their winter production, the winter lettuces and everything, have definitely a greater shelf life than they would, say, in August or July. But we've had radicchio that we harvested a month and a half ago. We're still selling it. And if you keep it in the right environment, it keeps amazingly well. And so we're doing different chicories as well. That's another thing to add to people's salad to make it more interesting. And then another one, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right, it's putarelli. It's a type of radicchio that looks like little asparagus heads coming out of a head of it. We grew it almost by accident. I guess Martha Stewart had a magazine about it, and we had people coming up from New York saying they were the only people they knew grew this stuff. And so there's a whole world for people that have direct sales at a farmer's market, which I think is your best bet for introducing something new. Whereas a farm stand, people are kind of going around, you really can't get in their way and say, oh, well, you really should try this, you know. At a farmer's market, I'm managing the market, and I'm always challenging people, try this. I just take it home, try it. Celeriac. I know it looks like a Mars, but if you peel it, and I tell them the fun thing about celeriac is the French take it and they put toothpicks in it like the avocado, and then they put it in a glass of water, and then this little chia pet greens come off the top, and that's what the French do. They cut that little chia pet stuff, and they flavor again. They flavor their salad with it.
Keeping it fresh, yeah.
Yeah, just something to make the salad more interesting. So with the idea that we have this amazing heat sink ocean all around us, like I said before, we're a peninsula. There's ocean on three sides of our farm. And so we quickly found out, and even our heavy soils are conducive to growing brassicas. And we've grown up to, I think we're almost up to 8 or 9 acres of different forms of brassicas. And one of the newest ones that's really been an amazing hit for us is this new Italian cauliflower. It's called Song or something from Johnny's. People will see it. And when you first grow it, the thing grows so fast that it's literally almost 14 to 16 inches wide. And you're saying, what am I going to do with this thing? How am I going to sell it? It's not like the typical gnarly 2-pound dome cauliflower that you usually have. And when we first started growing it last year, my son had a great idea. Because it's so wide, it has these long stems that are almost 4 or 5 inches long back to the main central area of the plant. And so we just snap them off, and we throw them in a bin, wash them, and then we're putting them in unfortunately, it's not very ecological, but we're putting them in these plastic containers, like these clamshell containers. People went crazy for this stuff because we tell people you can take the tips of it off. The tips are so delicate. Each little crown has its own little, 1/2-inch little tip. That's the tip of it. And you can take that and chop it off, and again, throw it in a salad to make your salads more interesting, and then you can steam the other part of it for the cauliflower flavor. But again, I'd recommend to people to try it because the shelf life on this stuff is unbelievable. I mean, it's got to be 4 times what you would have if we bring in cauliflower during the usual September, October period. The shelf, it's always a challenge. We always cut our cauliflower, leaving 80% of the leaves to protect the cauliflower from getting bruised. But it's also to try to keep the bacterium from getting all those little sort of gray spots that come on the cauliflower. It's a big problem longevity-wise. Another thing we've become known for, or what we found very successful, is we went down to Pennsylvania, horticultural college down there. I forgot the name of it, but they had a big symposium on interseeding with different. They were mostly interseeding in sweet corn and silage corn, but they had a machine. It was basically a Great Plains no-till grain drill. It's about a 6-footer that has 10 different shoes on it. And what they did with it is they took this Great Plains no-till grain drill and they jacked it up 24 inches, so it's higher. But the seed shoe is still down low. And so what we've done, we got a grant to get that. The first one, which I recommend to people, if you've never heard of a CIG grant, which you can get through NRCS, and the CIG grant is for bringing in new technology, whether it be for fishing or farming. We got money from the CIG to actually convert our first G tractor to an electric tractor. But they also like the idea of the interseeder. So what we do with the interseeders, we take out shoe number 3 and number 7, and that is exactly where our broccoli, we transplant our broccoli. It's 34 inches. And so we transplant our broccoli, We do kind of like a Lely line cultivation a couple of times. Maybe do one type the finger weeders that go in the row. And then after that, we just take out those shoes and we drive over it with the interseeder, and we're putting down a cover crop. 3 in them between the rows and 2 on either side of the outside of the rows. And it's quite amazing. It's like the broccoli is about, I'd say, 7 or 8 true leaves at that point. It's not big enough that it's going to get banged up too much by these big shoes going by it. But we put in a mixture of, we put buckwheat, radish, red clover, just a little bit of rye as a nurse crop. And when it comes up, we can see it's up, but then all of a sudden the broccoli plant just immediately dominates the light and basically shuts down the light. So it kind of goes into this diapause. And we've been doing this almost 9 years, and we have not yet seen an interference with the amount of nitrogen it's needed to grow the broccoli crops. So it's been a fantastic system, because once we get in there, like I said, we're harvesting a large part of our broccoli crop in the early weeks of December. And once you cut off that broccoli, the rest of the plant sort of melts down from the inside out. But that cover crop sees that light, and it's still October, December, still a lot of good growth going on like that. And we have tremendous growth. And if we were harvesting broccoli in the old days, in late November or early December, you harvest the broccoli, you couldn't put a cover crop on and expect to get even 15% take.
Right.
Now we got something we know it's already taken, it's there. And you come around the solar bend to next April and May, I swear I'm going to try to get a grant to study this. I think that plant, it's got more top-line growth before it goes regenerative. In other words, that rye is staying soft and supple higher up in the ground before it actually starts making a seed pod, which is when the rye becomes a problem. It starts growing lignans and it's hard to get rid of. But so that's been a big thing for us, going a cover crop with a cash crop.
And then in the spring, what are you doing to terminate that before getting back in there?
All depends what our long-term plan is. If it's a late bean crop, we'll just flail mow it a bunch of times. And that gets to another topic side topic. So with this no-till grain drill, we see the opportunity to, because all of our acreage, we at least every 4th year or 5th year, we take it out of commission for a year and put a cover crop on it just to rebuild the soil. And the no-till grain drill has been fabulous for that, because we can just go we can flail mow down that crop, that cover crop, and immediately go in with the no-till grain drill and put some millet or something else in there. And so we've experimented with some of the years where we're taking things out for 2 years. We can put a number of crops. We'll actually get almost 3 different cover crops on in the summertime, and we'll just flail mow them down and then plant another one. And so what we ended up having was, like, I call it a duff. It was almost like 1.5 inches of this amazing carbon source. And the problem was it was so dense that we tried to harrow it in even with our scalloped harrows. It was like trying to harrow in rope. It just would not work. And then I heard about these high-speed harrows that a number of people, I think Jericho Settlers bought one. I think Justin Rich has one. We got a used one from a friend of ours. It's only, I think it's 7-foot wide one. It really has changed the way we farm. It's hard to emphasize how much this has changed what we do, because the way these things are set up, at least the ones we own, it's set up to only go down about 4 inches, but it can take that duff. It can be sorghum Sudan, which can be a real problem trying to get rid of, especially if you've let the stems grow up and have a lot of lignans in them. that thing goes down, and what it does is that it incorporates all this carbon material, and it incorporates it, turns it into the soil beautifully, much better, almost as good as, if better than, a rototiller. And if you get the rains and some nice warm temperatures in the early summer, the microbes get in there, and I've never seen everything kind of be consumed by microbes at such an accelerated rate. And it's really inspired my son he just loves cover cropping now, and he straps that thing on, and it's really revolutionized how we redo things, because we're trying to, we've always felt guilty about, books came out called Plowman's Folly, and not seeing that turning over soil with a plow is abhorrent to certain soil theologists. And we've always felt guilty, but we needed a plow. When things got out of control, a winter squash or something, it seemed like the best solution, just to kind of bury everything down there, trying to leave it on the surface to let the bugs eat the seed. It just never amounted to anything. So now we have a way with the no-till transplanter to get much more time-efficient crops in. And we're lucky, again, we're zone 7A or B almost, so we can put in crimson clover pretty late in the fall and still have it give us a beautiful, crimson clover crop in the summer. Nothing prettier than that. What other questions? I'm trying to think of all the things that we do.
No, that's great. You've covered a lot. I'm glad you brought up the speed disc. That's actually something that's on my upgrade list in the near future as well, because I think it's a really useful tool for incorporating cover crops, like you said. It's
unbelievable.
It doesn't. It's not a full tillage. It is, but it's shallow tillage and controlled without going to a full plow.
What's hard for people to understand, unless you've actually spent time with one, is that each individual harrow disc is its own disc. It's got its own spring reset, and the discs are oriented in such a way that they're pretty aggressive, but they're also tilted slightly akimbo forward, so they have this amazing, really aggressive action without really sucking the thing down into the ground. It's really amazing. The only thing, caveat emptor, about it is that we have a 105 horsepower Kubota. And when it first came, we thought we'd just pull it. And I said, Tyler, we're going to ruin this tractor. So luckily we found a used Kubota for 135 horsepower. And you almost need it that size just to pick the thing up. I think it's got to weigh around a ton and a half at least.
Yeah, I think
it's a lot of metal.
3,500, 4,000 pounds.
Yeah. But it's one of my favorite tools. There's another tool that's one of our favorite tools that if somebody goes into the Instagram and looks at some of our videos that my son does, and I'm ashamed, I'll have to tell you what the name of it is, but it's from Holland. And I think Mike Snow up in Vermont, Mike Snow was selling them. He sold me a used one. And it's a new thought process on the Lillison, what's the finger weeder? The
tine weeder.
Tine weeder. It's a new thought on tine weeding. It's got 10 different settings on it that you can control with a hydraulic lever. And if you can go over something and you're popping out, plugs because it's too aggressive, you just back down on it, and all of a sudden it's been so unbelievable, because the old tine weeders, you have this complicated series of fingers that you had to adjust, and not but anybody else, but we were always kind of backing it into something that would bend the thing, so you never were sure what the pressure was on it. And this machine is just, again, revolutionized. We can even tine weed our carrots.
Wow.
Once they're up to about 3 true leaves, we can actually, with the lightest setting, just gently go over it. That's how the differentiation in the settings is unbelievable.
Even in your heavy soils.
Yeah, it's been incredible. So that's been a huge boon for us. We're still, I'd say, 20% of our income is selling wholesale to restaurant, more than that, about 35%. We've been selling to Whole Foods for a number of years, but I don't know, there's something about Jeff Bezos and the new law firms that are running that store now. They're crazy about insurance and stuff, and we may actually be priced out of selling to Whole Foods, because anything that's considered edible raw, like cilantro or lettuce, that can potentially have some deer poop on it, that would have E. coli on it, you have to have a $3 million on top of your $1 million supplemental insurance policy. So we're trying to deal with that at this point.
So you've done a bunch of CSA and retail farm store stuff. What's your mix now? Is it still mostly the farmers market?
I'd say we're doing a huge farmers market in Providence, and if anybody's organizing a winter farmers market and they want to look at what they did in Providence, there's a group up there called Farm Fresh Rhode Island who got a $3 million grant from some food pantry kind of group, and they built this, I don't know how many thousand square feet. It's big. I mean, the hallways, it has these huge horseshoe-shaped hallways that are 30 feet wide. This whole hallway is 30 feet wide. So each farmer can set up, 4 feet off the wall on either side, and there's still 16 feet for people to walk through. And it's just
a full booth, yeah, not just a table.
Yeah, it's just the amount. And then the other, this is a huge lesson I learned. I don't know, I should talk about it because I think it's so important. I once went with a friend of mine out to Michigan to a big winter farm conference, and they had this thing advertised: go see 7 different farms in the local area in the wintertime. I thought, well, I don't know what the heck. So I snuck onto the Trailways bus, and we drove around to all these different farms. And of course, there was this obnoxious guy in the front with a microphone saying, we're going to go to this guy's house. He says, notice all the not value added, look at all the stupid trinkets they have. But they're selling ice cream. Ice cream is a big thing for farmers markets, and they're saying, and every time we finish that particular farm, get back on the bus, you say, what's the most important thing we all should learn from this visit? And somebody said, oh yeah, sell the acorn candy before Halloween and all this other stuff. And he would go, wrong. He says, look at the parking lot. Mm. And every time we looked at the parking lot was like, you look at it in your mind, you say, that's 3 times the amount of parking lot you need. But we went to 9 other places, and everyone that was successful had a big parking lot. They spent the money on the parking lot. Huh. And that was a huge takeaway for me. Because when we came back here to our own farm, I said, man, that's one of our problems. It's not that we can't sell. We could sell more stuff, but there's no place for people to park. Yeah. And so that's a huge takeaway for people. So if you don't have parking, you can't expect your sales to expand at a certain level.
Right. The customers feels crowded. It takes away from their experience, or they can't even get in.
No, they just want to come in. It's just convenient for them to come in. And I'll tell you another thing that's unusual that really works for us. And that's, we are only open 3 days a week. And people think we're absolutely, I tell my other farmer friends, I say, you nuts? You got to be open. But we're at the end of a peninsula, so people aren't coming from outside the peninsula to really come to us. And we're open Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday. And we're so busy now that it takes all of Friday just to restack the chips or the pasta bottles and stuff like that. And it's just, and meanwhile, the kitchen is full tilt doing value-added stuff on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And they need the time just because we do so much business on the weekends. It's unbelievable. And that, sometimes I like the old saying, sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart. COVID started in 2020. And in January of 2020, before anybody around the USA or anybody else really knew what COVID was going to be, and how it was going to impact society. In January of 2020, there was 32 houses for sale in our town. By April 1st, there was one. And all those people came into town. The people were driving in from New York City, all these license plates, and they were begging us just to open up because they didn't want to go to a local Stop and Shop. They were begging for us to. We opened up in March 15th. With down coats on and everything. We were selling stuff, but we developed a clientele by doing that. And so people they wait, they hold off their buying, and they come in on a Wednesday or Saturday or Sunday, and believe it or not, it's working really well for us. I still think we should add one more day, but it just shows you that you don't have to be open 7 days a week, depending on how you're introducing yourself to the world. I mean, if you want people to come there and buy sweet corn every day, you got to be open every day. But
yeah,
so sweet corn is one of the things we don't grow. We try to do. I'd say we're 90% organic, and so trying to grow sweet corn organically this far south, it's just untenable. It's corn earworm. It just kills us. Another crop that we've learned, unfortunately, by having tremendous losses is Brussels sprouts. We don't grow Brussels sprouts organically anymore just because there's a bug. It's called winter cabbage aphid. And this gray aphid that gets onto the Brussels sprouts, and once they're in there, you can't get them out. I don't care what you spray it with. And alternaria is another big problem for us. So, but I've studied this winter aphid thing for years. I've talked to all the top people in Vermont, all the big corporate extension people, and so one of the things that they say is that this winter aphid doesn't really overwinter here so much as it comes in about the same time that the spotted-winged Drosophila comes into town. But spotted-winged Drosophila is repopulating itself every 6 or 7 days. It's a fruit fly, whereas the winter aphid takes a little longer. But you really don't notice it on any of your broccoli or brassica crops in July or June because there's only 1 or 2 of them around. But if you wait till like August 10th or so, you'll see the population has doubled, quadrupled since they came into town, and that's when they're really starting to bulk up. And that's what we do. We target one spray around August 15th with this aphicide. Again, it's got a very, very mild LD50 on it. And once we knock them out, they're gone. They're still around. But by the time it gets to November, the cold weather, everything, they're just not a problem anymore. Huh. So that's one of the ways we've kind of come to the conclusion about because Brussels sprouts are growing like 1.5 acres of them, and that's one of our huge draws during the winter. We're still selling them in the winter markets now, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. And alternaria is another problem. We're trying to figure out the ways around it, but again, alternaria, it's a big problem. A lot of people are having more and more problems with alternaria, especially on cauliflower. Cauliflower just is drawn to alternaria for whatever reason I can't figure out. Also, on the Brussels sprouts, we're also doing the cover crop with that. Since it's such a long crop, it's a great way to put in an extra cover crop simultaneously.
What does sustainable farming mean to you, and what are you doing to achieve it?
Well, we're always, like I said, we're taking our land out of production at least 1 year out of 5. And in some cases, if we feel the organic matter is under challenge, we'll take it out for 2 years in a row. And that's when we're putting in using the no-till transplanter to transplant and put extra carbon on there so we can introduce it into the and I've also been playing around we haven't really done a big commitment to it yet, but we're getting very close to trying to do some no-till. More than no-till and tarps, we're thinking about going with this Innovation Ag. I think Link, somebody from Massachusetts.
Lincoln Fishman?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's got an incredible program. I felt blessed to go to that conference he just had. And so we're going to be trying some white clovers. And, the trick of it is trying to disturb the surface so you can put in some tomatoes or something that can not be impacted by the roots eventually wanting to get back in there. So we feel, we're doing the best we can. But again, we don't use a rototiller anymore. In all our greenhouses, we use a power harrow, which is a whole different activity. It's a spinning vertically.
Yeah.
Another thing that's really changed our life again, talking about that high-speed harrow, that really just renovates the soil so fast. We can really take fewer passes to get it up to snuff, ready to go into another cover crop or into a quick lettuce crop.
Do you follow that with a Perfecta or anything, or is that your primary field prep tool?
It's our primary field prep.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think we use our Perfecta just to get the stones out of the field because it's so great at pulling stones up. I can see where they are. We have a stone-bearing rototiller, which we like and we hate. It's a little delicate. It tends to jam on rocks and stuff, even though it's a stone barrier. But we makes a raised bed, which is nice. So
you have some big stones that's challenging for that?
Yeah, they're the size of a junior high school football, not a NFL football, but they're substantial size. Yeah, we're just trying to do cover cropping. And one thing, again, with that idea is that we've been growing greenhouse tomatoes and winter greens in some of these greenhouses for over 38, 40 years. And what we've noticed in the last 12 years is that the soil tests come back from Logan Labs that does an amazing job. Our nutrients just all over the map. I mean, they're just, anybody knows anything about CDC, if you got way too much phosphorus or way too much manganese in something, it sort of throws off another element, so they don't quite work in concert. And so after 38 years, we've actually got one greenhouse that we're going to actually completely take the top off it, and we're going to grow cover crops in it for 2 years, cover all the electrical panels and everything, the heaters, and just let it reestablish itself with just normal rains. And so,
but for the most part, you can repeatedly grow in them, and it hasn't been too big of an issue soil health wise.
Issues are growing because the salt builds up eventually, and calcium actually has become a problem. Almost too much calcium.
Has steaming helped reset some of that?
I don't think it's reset the nutrient as much as it's gotten rid of some of the problem weeds and the like Sclerotinia, which has been a big problem for us. Another thing we're doing that's going to be kind of a radical thing for us, a friend of mine spent $5,000 for some official Canadian scientist to come down from Canada to tell him what's the best thing he can do to improve his tomato production. And he looked in his greenhouse, and he's walking around, and he saw at the end of this greenhouse these plenums with these big round circles in front of every walkway in the rows. And he said, how come you aren't using those plenums anymore? He says, people are always tripping on them. I began to wonder if it was really that good. And he said, you just paid $5,000 for me to come down here and give you the best. My number one advice is to get those plenums up and running again. There's nothing. Everybody's having problems with gray mold and other type of botrytis. We have a huge problem with botrytis. And we've always relied on our horizontal airflow fans, which once the tomatoes are up 8 feet high, those horizontal airflow fans aren't doing anything for you. And we've tried to put little cheap fans blowing things down the walkways. But now we're going to have a plenum. This is going to have one of those bags on it.
Yeah.
The whole going the entire way. This is going to have little holes cut in that bag at, say, 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock. And it will be, it's going to be on constantly. It's going to be constantly blowing air up underneath.
I've seen some people use those for heat in the spring.
Well, yeah.
But this is all season for ventilation.
Exactly. Well, also, this guy, the guy from Canada said, another thing you can do is, even though it's summertime, it's July, and it could be 79 degrees at night, close up that greenhouse and just raise the temperature 5 degrees. It won't cost you hardly anything because it's already 78. But just heating up that greenhouse and getting that moisture off the surface of the tomatoes and the leaves, it's just less bacterium.
Don't let the dew set.
Yeah. So that's something we're going to act on this year.
Yeah. You mentioned you use the power harrow a lot. What benefits do you see using that versus a rototiller?
Well, rototillers are much more violent. It's like a wearing blender. It's just
overkill.
It's just adding a tremendous amount of oxygen. And I don't know, I've heard the story, I don't know how true it is, that Cornell University has been doing some long-term studies on no-till agriculture, and they're finding that there's certain microbes that exist 1 inch down, 2 inches down, 3 inches down. They're populated by arthropods and everything. That's where they live. That's where they want to live. And if you rototill something like a rototiller, you completely taken that whole society of beneficial organisms and killed them, or added too much oxygen and killed them that way, or just totally mixed them up. Where a power harrow, it's just gently turning it in. It's mixing we put compost in and fertilizer, like I said, alfalfa man, and we're just gently turning it in.
So that mixes up the top few inches, makes it nice.
It goes down 3 inches.
Yeah,
that's all we need.
Yeah.
That's where you're fertile.
That's enough to mix in the amendments and transplant stuff.
Exactly.
And then we'll call it the subsoil. Stuff below 3 inches is left up. Otherwise, a rototiller's 6-8 inch.
Yeah, it's too much.
Till.
It's too violent. It's just the activity. It goes like crazy. It's another thing we learned there was a great little meeting up in Lebanon, New Hampshire, and they had a guy from Maine that was, forgotten his name, but he was a soil scientist, and he says one of the problems a lot of people are having is salt buildup in greenhouses, and he said that actually adding gypsum, which is calcium and sulfur, mitigates the salt buildup, and so that was a good thing to know. We're using a fair amount of gypsum these days just because we had the worst coal-fired electric plant in New England, in Fall River, Massachusetts, and they just took it out of commission about 4 years ago. So for 35 years, we've had this dose of sulfur over Little Compton, and it actually, we used to grow, we didn't have to spray any kind of fungicides on our zucchini or our winter squash. As soon as that thing went away,
interesting,
we had to start adding sulfur to our, So now that's a big thing for us. We add gypsum to all our onions and because they need that sulfur.
As a spray or as a soil amendment?
Soil amendment. Yeah. Another big problem for us, it's just not a problem for everybody, but it's a huge problem for us in this region, is deer. The deer population in this peninsula they've got no place to go off and eat other things, and
you're growing them a salad.
we've actually fenced in 2 7-acre plots completely with an expensive, $35,000 deer fence, and it's worth every penny. I mean, just not. Before we got that, we always were washing our salad mixes with that Storox, that hydrogen peroxide that supposedly kills on contact E. coli. Just not having to worry about that anymore has been a big relief. And then, of course, the deer aren't eating. Yeah, deer love radicchio, and we're big radicchio growers. They love that a little bit more than they like romaine, but it's been a big problem for us.
from a food safety standpoint and a yield perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other big thing is labor. It's huge. I don't know how other people are dealing with it. I don't know what the future of our society is with all this AI stuff coming and taking jobs away from people that have learned to make a living with a laptop on their lap. But we just can't get anybody that really wants to work. We had 4 people we hired. We vetted and said, okay, you're good. We want to hire you. Now, what 5 days do you want to work? And they all, 4 of them said, I only want to work 3 days. I was like, oh, really? It was like, it's kind of been that way for the last 2 years.
Huh.
I don't know if it's a certain millennial or Gen Z zeitgeist. It's been unbelievable.
How many crew members do you try to have?
We balloon up to about 14 in the middle of the summer.
All local help?
Pretty much, yeah. Like I said, we got some great cultivating tools. We bought one of those French tractors, TerraTech.
Yeah.
And that's been great setup for us. My son's gotten. It's one of those tractors only one person can drive it because it takes about 2 years of killing stuff to finally realize what your parameters are.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to, I'm sure.
Yeah, it does. I think another thing we do that's really beneficial to our bottom line is we bought these clear cellophane bags. I mean, you can get dumb old bags, but the cellophane bags have pleats on them. They open up a good 3 inches wide, and they're clear as a bell. And when we put things like radicchio in it or other bok choy, sometimes we put 3 or 4 bok choy in a bag, and the presentation is everything. And when I talk to people about farmers markets and why we're so successful, in our farmers market in Providence, we have 4 tents, and I have 6 people. 3 people are taking money, and 3 of us are just restocking and or just fluffing stuff. If it looks like crap, people are not going to buy it. We have these really cool design tables that are round, they're kind of cone shaped, so we put the beans out there. It looks like a mountain of beans without because I'm trying to pick the beans out of a 1 1/9 box. People, it's what Whole Foods figured out 35 years ago. If you pack it high and pack it to the sky, and they'll buy it, And so we don't do quite what they do, but we're really careful about making sure everything is presented well. We have our tomatoes are not just in some big pile. We have these green tomato trays, and we're always constantly redoing the tomatoes, constantly reassessing them, moving it around. And that's the other thing we do a lot of. We grow, I think, maybe even a little too much heirlooms. We're almost 75% heirlooms in our greenhouse production. It's the one that gets the best bang for our. I think we're starting out at $7.50 a pound, and we're selling them. Like I said, we started our first ones that are already up, so we'll have tomatoes by May 15th. But I can't emphasize enough how to run a farmer's market. You got to have people that. There's a great saying, or a lot of people don't know, that at Walmart, that greeter that greets you, that's a Japanese, William Walton or whatever his name was, went to Japan, and every store in Japan has a greeter. It says, welcome to our store. I'm so glad you came. And that's what Walmart's doing. They realize that really works. And if you ever walk into a real sushi bar in New York or Boston somewhere, you walk in that door, everybody in that store, all the sushi guys doing sushi, they stop for a second, they go, "Tadakimasu," which is like a greeting. And there's a thing about the Japanese culture that speaking in a kind of a little bit forward way you're imbibing people to react to you. And it's funny.
Grabs their attention.
It grabs their attention. They feel like they say in Japan in the big fish markets, people are yelling and screaming for no reason at all, just because it's because the fish. It seems everything is fresher because it has a certain visceral feeling about it. And I'm that way. It's like nobody sits at my. I don't care how slow we are. Nobody's sitting. If you need something, if you need to sit, then you got to go get a cup of coffee and get your willies out. But you see these people at farmers markets, they're sitting, they're hunched back. It's like, oh, you want some carrots? No, you've got to interact with people. And I tell people, don't, if you can remember their name or, oh, we talked to them, oh, last week, how'd you like those carrots? If you're talking with people like that, builds a certain brand. Again, back to that Japanese thing. You build a relationship. You didn't really invite them into that relationship, but now that they're in it, they like you for that. It's a big part of selling at a farmer's market is knowing how to interact with people. The old saying, if somebody brings something back, you take it back no matter how. If you think they sat on the box of strawberries, you take it back. And just try to take a mental note. Fool me once, fool me twice, shame on me. Yeah. But we're always giving people their money back or whatever if they feel like they didn't get whatever they wanted. And it's a big part. It's part and parcel of being successful at a market like that.
Got to leave them with a good taste in their mouth.
I just want to react. People want to. People, and then our society where everybody's on their iPhone, kind of not reacting to anybody. When somebody reacts in a friendly way, it's a positive experience for most people.
Right. Sure. It's not as common.
It's something to think about. Yeah. I'm not saying everybody should yell at their customers.
Tomatoes, beans, come on.
But I'm giving away stuff all the time. It's like, you ever tried this? So, and what's the other big secret for us? Really good green beans. We grow a ton of green beans. We grow beans and let half the row just go away because we want the ones that are fresher or more younger and more tender. We did a huge following with green beans, and that's because you get to the last week of June, everybody's got zucchini coming out of their ears. Anything that's easy to grow, they're coming out of their ears, but nobody really knows how to grow green beans and pick them right. So you got to learn the various things that if you put a little more attention to it, you'll get the lion's share of the business. That's another thing. And we take, like I said, our value-added stuff. That's a huge thing in our Providence market. Like I said, we have over 8 or 9 different kinds of hummus. We have beet hummus. We have chipotle carrot hummus. We have all these different things. And I put samples out all the time. I know somebody will come and eat half the sample. I don't care. It's the fact that
but they'll tell their friend.
You're interacting with people. It's like, yeah, that's, I think one of the things we've worked on is we do some conventional stuff, but we're very upfront about how we do it. When we sell our peaches at the farmer's market, we're saying these are low spray peaches. I tell them exactly what we're spraying on them and when the last time they were sprayed. I found people appreciate kind of going overboard, saying, I'd eat it. I hope you enjoy it.
They want the transparency, yeah.
Yeah, they want the transparency.
It builds trust with with your brand.
Yeah.
How'd you get started farming? Did you build this business from the ground up?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we bought this land in 1980, and they were growing silage corn on it, putting God knows what kind of herbicides down, and I said, I just want a quarter acre, and so I started growing a quarter acre of bok choy, and found out that nobody wanted bok choy. It was big as your second born, so I had to learn about how to market stuff and timing. There's so many things that I don't know how you'd ever write a book to tell people warning them about all the things. You really just have to learn by just trying it out, trying different things. We've done some cost, what do you call it, when you analyze dollar cost.
Cost of production?
Yeah. And we've done a couple of things where we're not quite sure how we're doing, but we don't watch it that closely. I think we feel like our prices are still lower than Whole Foods, and they're literally just a quarter mile away. We're killing them. I don't advertise that my prices are lower than them, but people are aware of prices and stuff. So, yeah. They say it takes 7 years to really understand a new farm you're at, because you really got to understand the soil, how it absorbs moisture, how it doesn't absorb moisture, how long it holds moisture for you. I think one of the biggest lessons I ever had was I saw Will Brinton talk from, what's the name of his, Wood something Soil Lab, Woods End Soil Lab. Amazing guy, knows his stuff about. He had a beautiful day's lecture about compost, and he described that compost is ancient compost. There's a level of compost in your soil, organic matter in your soil, that's almost indestructible. You can be the worst farmer in the world. You're always going to have
a certain
three-quarter of a spec. And then everything up from that, you can get moderate-lived organic matter from the last 20 years, especially if you're putting in cow manure and stuff. They got releases over time. But young organic matter that comes from a year or two of just cover crops, boy, it is amazing to me how that, and I've always heard this, I've never seen a scientific paper on it, but I've always heard that for every 1% of organic matter, you have 30,000 gallons of water holding capacity in that ground. And that is true, but one of the things we've learned, a little tweak on that, it's like, yeah, but if we're getting into a serious drought, we have to manage the water so we can keep the water level on there so we can give it back. If we just say, well, it's got 30,000 gallons, we have 3% organic matter, we don't have to worry about anything. No, you've got to manage that.
You got to load
even
it.
as 5% organic. If you can give it water ahead of a drought, you need to actually build that aquifer up, if you would, in your soils. And that's something I've become acutely aware of after getting hit on the head. I think 21 or 22 was a really hard drought. And we had a lot of wells go dry, and it was only by managing the water the way we did that we got anything out of the year.
What do you think was easy when you were getting started farming that may be more difficult now, or vice versa? What was hard when you got started that's easier now?
Well, there's a ton of nice tractors out there. I'm so glad that we stayed with Kubota right from the get-go. We've never bought a John Deere. I'm so good, especially at this juncture in the history of John Deere's descent into bad news. We had got good tractors. We bought a lot of international harvesters at first, and they weren't, all the international harvester tractors are all made to go at a cultivate at a certain speed. If you're doing finger weeding on lettuce, it's just going way too fast. And so we bought some 1710s and some 245s, Kubotas, and we've been lucky to have found those. There's a big jump from just doing an acre or 2 or 3 and then going up to 5 or 6. You got to have something that can turn the crops in, get the cover crops managing. There's an old famous saying that, a business that's highly successful at $100,000, if it tries to expand out to $150,000 and they can't find the markets for it, it can be a big downdraft in the business. And so we were lucky. I do feel, and it's been corroborated by going to different farmers meetings, that the CSA idea is kind of waning. I know a lot of people, but especially this year, they said that people aren't just signing up for it like they were in the past.
Huh.
So I don't know if that's something that people should think about. It's the adage I feel is that it's starting out in relationships. I hate to harp on the Japanese thing, but if you're selling stuff and you're outgoing and you get people to try it, I mean, people have been coming to us now for 40 years. Their children are coming to us, you know, and once you develop a relationship, the other thing I think the number one crop for a young farmer is organic blueberries. There's an unsatiable attraction to organic blueberries. Again, organic, you're going to have to build a netting over it or something like that. You're going to have to worry about winter moth. But pick your own blueberries if you can. Again, it takes a long time to get a bush big enough to.
Right, yeah.
But I've tried to advise people, if you can, you got to get your pH down. You can't mess with that. You put a blueberry bush in a pH that's too high, it will take you years to get that blueberry bush where it needs to be. But I'd say blueberries is a really good crop. Whereas strawberries, the problem with strawberries, and we only grow about half an acre, but it's a problem. We don't think we really make that much money on it, because when you're picking the first crop, you're kind of walking around a lot and getting a couple of red, you know, by the 10 days later, you can't pick enough of them. But then as the crop begins to wane, now you're back to that, you know, walking a couple of steps, picking 2 more strawberries. And that's costing you labor. You got to think about the labor picture on something like strawberries. Are you really able to make that's why I think pick your own strawberries if you're in the right place is the way to go.
Pick your own is good. Pre-picked may be harder.
Yeah. You just run into issues.
Are your strawberries matted row, or have you gotten into the plasticulture?
We do a plasticulture.
Yeah.
And just get 2 years out of it. That's it. I'm trying to think what our other big crops. We grow about an acre of leeks. We were able to get away with not having an allium leaf miner up to about a year ago. Now we realize you're going to have to spray it. I don't think covering an acre of leeks will work it, but entrust is a spinosad, and that works on. Timing is everything with making sure that you got to. I wish somebody would come out with a pheromone trap that you could catch them to understand what your pressure is. Mm-hmm. That's the hardest thing for me to figure out. It's like, is it bad?
Yeah, right.
And trust is very expensive. Potatoes are a big crop for us. We grow our potatoes. Half of our potatoes, by green sprouting them and planting them in plastic, we punch them right down into plastic.
Oh, interesting.
And so we have a special water wheel that punches the deep hole, puts water in it. And then with that extra muddy water, we just push the seed plug in there. And it's a green sprouted potato, so it's got these hard nodules on it. And they come flying out of the ground, and we get an incredible crop. And we grow some specialty ones. There's one called Masquerade that is just unbelievably beautiful. And I think it's the best eating potato there is. We sell a ton of those. You know, another big thing that I should mention probably is that we've learned from others that if you're doing big winter markets, learning how to accommodate the different storage needs of different crops is huge. And so we have 5 different atmospheres that we keep. You know, carrots want to be damn near 33 degrees, but moist as hell, whereas onions want to be 33 degrees, but dry as a bone. Garlic, too. Shallots, the same way. Butternut wants to be about 55 degrees, 60 degrees, but dry. You can put sweet potatoes in there with them because they like the same temperature, but you have to wrap the sweet potato bin with big pallet wrap because you got to keep the moisture in. Sweet potatoes tend to lose their moisture over time, and they shrivel up, and then people won't buy them, even though I think they taste even better when they're a little bit look like a cheroot.
But it condensed the flavor, yeah.
Yeah, going forward for us, it's one of the things next couple of years we want to build we have lots of little greenhouses, we have a lot of storage containers, the big 50-foot wide containers that people send around the world. Mm-hmm. And they're all insulated like crazy because they're all freezer storage containers. But after all this time, we realized we really need to build a nice Morton building, a nice 35-foot wide open area that's going to have 2, 3, maybe even 3 bin cooler in there. Because we're using a lot. We have what we have. We have 4 different CoolBots, 3 different 1.5 horsepower coolers, and that's just not efficient.
Right.
And I will say one of the things we have done that's kind of cool that a lot of people don't know about is in all our 1 horsepower big typical evaporator coolers, we've always bought what's called a low evaporator. In other words, most big coolers have a big fan, and the cool air is right behind that fan is the tubes. Well, a low velocity evaporator has this box. It's about 17 inches wide, but it's about 6 foot long, and it's got all these fans that the cold air oozes out of the top of it, and you can put spinach in there. It's got a little bit of water on it, and the next day that water's still on it. Whereas if he has the other coolers, it's always desiccating what's in there.
Yeah.
Zucchini, it starts to immediately dry out.
Too much airflow.
Yeah, and just it's drying out.
Yeah.
14 greenhouses. We have 1 greenhouse that we run all winter, and that has a boiler in it. And that's been really advantageous for making heat tables that are heated for grafting and just raising stuff. And also, there's a plethora of grow lights from people that have gone out of business trying to grow marijuana. So we take advantage of that. But it's nice having good light and good quality. And I like hydronic heat for that greenhouse.
Yeah, those heated benches.
Yeah, and just you can do. Yeah, I just like having one house that I have the hydronic heat.
Are those grow lights really essential for the tomato starts and things you have growing early in the winter?
They seem to be. They look better than they ever have.
Yeah,
let's put it that way. It's the first year we've really had them, and boy, they look great. Grafting is a great thing for people to get into, but I'd say if you've only been in a greenhouse tomato or a high tunnel for 7 or 8 years, I don't think you really need to graft plants. You'll get more production. I mean, a grafted plant is like a highway of water coming in those roots, just unbelievable. But unless you've got disease problems on the roots, corky root rot or some other things like the real problem, I think grafting is not necessarily for everybody.
There's other things to make sure you have in order first.
Yeah, if you're watching your fertility, then the other big thing that's come out in the last 5 or 6 years, if you're going to grow a tomato plant that's going to end up being 9 or 10 feet high, you got to give it a lot of potassium. Mm-hmm. We're talking 600 pounds to the acre. Some friends of mine just go crazy. And it gobbles it up. It takes a lot of potassium to keep tomatoes happy.
Yeah.
That's what we found.
What's something you wish you knew when you were getting started? Or would you do anything different, knowing what you know now?
I think I've been pretty lucky. I learned to go retail. Wholesale was not going to be the way we were going to make it. CSA wasn't even in people's minds back then. So getting a farm stand, and again, I'd say buying a farm stand that's already going is huge. Because whether it's not you, but it's somebody else that was running that, they're going to come back there expecting to see that person or get the good quality produce. If you can buy
some customers and momentum.
Yeah, momentum and customers. It really is. That's what happened when I bought that farm stand. Like I said, 50% of the income was cigarettes and chocolate bars. And we got rid of that, but we had the advantageous enough we could put in a deli. It didn't cost me. All I bought was a slicer and a sandwich maker, and I was making sandwiches like crazy. Then everybody it takes a lot of labor to go down that rabbit hole, but
Did you find that being challenging to be diversified and making sandwiches when your bread and butter was making, growing vegetables?
Well, I learned pretty quickly I was making a lot more money making sandwiches.
Yeah.
And I was growing, at that point, I think I had maybe 3 acres of total vegetables, zucchini and everything. I wasn't that big.
Yeah.
I would not buy a rototiller. I would buy a good harrow and a power harrow, not a rototiller. There's different harrows you can get to. There's ones that open up. They kind of pivot on this one point. I'm trying to think. Athens makes the one. If I hadn't bought my high-speed harrow from Poland there, I think it's called Softener is the name of it.
Farmat speed disc. Yeah. Softer, probably the 2.5 meter.
Yeah. Anyway, there's harrows that you can open up that are very aggressive. That was my next step, because I knew I had to take that organic carbon and somehow incorporate it. I needed to get it down where the microbes could consume it. And another thing we're trying next year is we're going to do some tarping. I'm looking forward to have a 1/4 acre of tarped land that I can just pull the tarp back, seed down some arugula. Don't have to worry about weeds getting in. It's nice being able to just have instant ready to go land. So we're going to be using the tarping for that. Oh, the other big thing I recommend to people, if people are starting out, I would avoid getting animals on your farm. I've seen more people thinking they want to have cows and pigs and sheep and all these things, and the cost of the animals, the problem is if the animal gets sick or something, everything has to stop until you get that animal cured or back on its feet again, and that can take a lot of money. I mean, the public veterinarians that actually visit places, it's a disappearing art. And if you've got a big cow that you don't know what to do with, I can't imagine the pressure. So we do chickens. We get egg-laying chickens, and we buy them in as pullets. We get a 5-month-old chicken that's hopefully a week or so away from laying, and we get about 450 of them.
Wow.
And we can't keep up to the demand for the eggs. So we just kept it just chickens, cat, and a dog. And
but that's been manageable.
Yeah, if you can pick up, I say if you're if you're delivering to restaurants and places wholesale, you really got to think about trying to get something that's got some insulation. You can cool down a little bit. There's nothing worse in the middle of the summer trying to get something somewhere. Actually, just made me think of it. Our big produce, we have this big barn. That's where the kitchen, everything is. But then we have a lean-to behind it that's quite big. It's 50 feet long by about 34 feet wide. So it's a big area. And on Facebook Marketplace a couple of years ago, a friend of mine said, "Man, you got to get one of these iPhone cell towers. At the bottom of the cell tower is this little room, and they have to air condition the room because they create so much heat. And so they have these air conditioners that are the size of a door. It's literally the size of a door. And even if it's only run for 10 hours in 3 years, after 3 years, they throw them away, and you can pick them up for next to nothing. And we got, I think it's 1.5 million BTUs or something. It's a huge thing, but we don't use it to really cool the room down. It's on the hottest days of the year, but we're just trying to take the humidity out of the air. We bring all the zucchini in. There's nothing worse than taking a zucchini in and throwing it in a cooler that's 40 degrees. It immediately begins to sweat, and that ages the zucchini really quick. Same thing with eggplant. We just bring all the zucchini and eggplant we pick, never goes in the cooler, just stays in that air-conditioned room where it's probably 72 degrees maybe, but the humidity is negligible. And I think I bought that thing for maybe $500.
Huh.
And it's worked like a charm. It's just
Sucking the summer humidity away.
Yeah, just taking it out. You got to have a place you can work, because there's a lot of fussing around. I have with 14 greenhouses full of tomatoes and stuff. We have a lot of people just parsing tomatoes and moving things around. It's nice to have a work area that the people can work, and and stuff doesn't need to be, we got to get it in a cooler by this amount of time. And that's been a big deal for us. Also, picking things early in the morning before the heat gets into the lettuce. We try to get out there as early as we can. We're not big lettuce growers, but there's a potential we may get back into growing lettuce for Whole Foods, and then we'll have to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning trying to get the heat up before you bring it in. But another big thing that's really been cool for us is there's a company called Orbis, Orbiz, I think. Anyway, they make plastic containers. They make the folding top containers, but they also make these big 1 1/9 bushel containers that have a little wire that you can flip over so you can stack them.
Yep.
The coolest thing they have is this one that's 2.5 bushel, maybe it's even 2 3/4 bushel. It's a big hamper, but it's got the same wires, and we can pack 32 heads of lettuce in there nicely, and we bring it up to Whole Foods, and they absolutely love it. Because whenever they're bringing in produce from Pennsylvania or whatever, it's in a box. They don't know how long it's been sitting in a Whole Food cooler, and they always have to peel off 5 or 6 leaves to get it even sellable. Our stuff comes in, it's right out of the cooler. We've brought it up there cold. They put it right out on the shelf, and they love that. So that's something to think about. And we harvest into those containers, and then we rewash and then repack the containers. But it's again, you can go to Orbis website and check them out. They have a little wire. That's a really nice, very important. There's certain things like that are critical for our success, I think.
Yeah. Any big changes in the future of your farm on the horizon?
I'm trying to. My son's 35. He's in the process of becoming the captain on the ship. So there's a couple of more big things he has to take over, which will be the books.
Yeah.
Labor. So I don't want to dump it all in his lap and see you later, bye. So I'm sticking around. I'm the guy that does most of the spraying. But I don't want it to get any bigger. I think we keep efficiently using things. I think there's huge opportunities. I mean, the last 2 mini conferences I went to, I have this sense, like I said earlier, CSA seems to be in a downdraft, what do you want to call it? It's lost. It's just like the CSA debit card. Mm-hmm. Everybody got into that for a while. I think a lot of people got out of it just as quickly because it's a lot of management issues. And so...
Are you seeing any other trends that you think might be on the upswing?
Again, I'm just kind of doing broad generalizations, but I think if you can get a farm that's about an hour away from a city, you'll buy it at a good price, a better price, and then don't be afraid that you have to drive in the city to go to a farmer's market. If you're in the city and you're paying high water costs or whatever, you've got to. There's a lot. Is this another thing? It's a lot of people my age. I'm 73. There's a lot of people that got into farming with me 40 years ago that are getting rid of their farms. They're trying to sell their farms, and it's a tough spot. A lot of people are having problems trying to transition to a retirement because there's not a lot of people that can afford a 40-something that can afford a real estate that you build up to. So I think a young person that can, in Massachusetts, I'm not sure what the name of the organization is, but they actually buy farms. There's the New England Antiquities, something like that, is one of them.
I know there's a few.
Yeah. That's not a bad way to start. Before you buy a farm, I'd work for somebody else, no matter if they're slave drivers. If you can get 2 or 3 years, and I go with a different farm every time.
Yeah.
Because the more you learn about what makes that farm work or not work, and you'll pick that up pretty quick. This isn't working. It gives you more of an education to make your own decisions, what you want to buy. If you're going to buy an old piece of equipment, well, this is when you got to watch out for that. But I'd say working for somebody for a couple of years is paramount. I mean, I would have learned so much. I would have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars learning not hard knocks. You know, there's a lot of great farms out there.
What are a couple of expensive lessons learned that maybe you wish you didn't do or didn't buy?
I bought a really complicated pocket planter that we've had the dickens trying to get that thing to work. I mean, you get it working, and then all of a sudden they start putting them in sideways, and you're like, somebody's getting off the tractor, and you're, pocket planters can be tricky. And I think stone barriers, there's a new design in stone barriers now. They radically changed from what they were when they first came out 10 years ago. Now the newer ones have a much higher dome over the incorporating tractor tines. And so you can bury rocks and grass, and you can really, not have problems.
Plug up as often. So you have an older model that, I see.
Yeah. So
one other question I like to ask is what's something you wish the general public knew about farming? Or maybe what do you find yourself telling your customers?
I know that gets into a much larger question about the zeitgeist of our society and everybody looking at their cell phones and preoccupied with trivial pursuits. I mean, every once in a while I think, my God, where are we going? Really, I mean, I think about, the last great Depression, 45% of the people in this country were working on farms. So when all of a sudden people were thrown back to themselves, Uncle Charlie knew how to grow beans or something. Now there's like 1/10 of 1%. And even those people really don't know much about, farming. I just think there could be this is a new operative word, an exogenous event that will catapult what we think about and how we live our lives in this society. I don't know if it's going to come from Donald Trump doing something stupid and people starting to shoot each other, or, China taking over Taiwan. There's a bunch of things that could really start a cascade, and AI is up there with it. It's like, just think of the amount of people that's going to lose a job. And so I think I'm not planning on it, but I'm thinking that, people are going to have to learn how to suddenly value less trivial pursuits, understand what the real meaning of life is, and learning how to grow your own food or be in a reciprocal relationship for somebody that doesn't know how to grow your food. And so I think that ultimately would be a positive thing, but it's going to be a dramatic, gnashing of teeth as people try to come to grips with how fast things can change. I think we've been in 50 years of really just nothing really, no world wars, no something that all of a sudden in 2 days everything's changed. Mm-hmm. We're on the verge of something like that, unfortunately. But it's important and everybody should think about it. It's just one of the reasons to get into farming. I'm not kidding. I mean, it's people are going to need people that know how to grow food. And like I said, if you're far enough away from the maddening crowd that you can ship it into a city, I think that's the golden spot. Or there's actually 3 different organizations in Massachusetts that buy farms and rent them out to people. I think that's a great place to start, because a lot of times they come with the equipment.
Yeah.
Wish I can remember the name of the one in Ipswich, but it's They have a whole cheese making operation. It's one of the oldest farms in New England.
Yeah. Have you felt like the U.S. has been on this brink of something major changing in the world and the economy for a while, or is that really just more of a recent feeling for you?
I really think it's since the beginning of the 80s.
Yeah.
The 70s were...
That's the majority of your career, though. You felt that something pivotal is
well, I just been slowly growing. It's like... it's hard to say. It's like I just see the average New Yorker or somebody that their lives, it's all about fashion or about this and these trivial pursuits. And it's not really the way the world works. You have to be grounded in something that has a deeper meaning. I'm an artist, and one of the greatest teachings one of my art teachers gave me had nothing to do with being an artist, really. But he said, we are artists because we're the only foil to the triviality of life. Even if you're an unsuccessful artist, if you're doing something that's with your hands and it's meaning, you're putting thought and consciousness into it, that's the opposite of these people that, want a vacation to the Caribbean and they want to get extra, they want the credit card that gives them all their money back from the gas. And, there's so many trivial pursuits that our society is based on. And now this explosion of Blue Apron and all these boxes, you don't have to worry about shopping anymore. You can just get this Blue Apron thing. It's like that. It's all kind of this building.
Makes people even more disconnected.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that was the majority of my questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to share today?
No, I wish my voice was in better shape. I sound older than I am, but no, it's been great. It's been great being a farmer. Like I said, it's better to be lucky than smart sometimes. COVID exploded our farm from COVID, and we catapulted our home farm sales through the roof. But I think it's always good to question. You got to constantly question what things are costing you. I think that's a discipline that you got to do. Even if every once in a while we're making some dip for the value added, and I say, I want to get dead nuts on what this chimichurri is costing me, because you guys are picking off cilantro one leaf at a time. I don't think I'm doing really well here, and so sometimes I have to readjust what we're doing. Oh, by the way, our number one moneymaker in our value added is garlic scape pesto. We take all the garlic scapes, we pop them off before they get hard. We take them back. You got to get a really good blender. You got to get a Roboku or something, because you got to chop it up to little tiny pieces. Then you just add good Parmesan and good olive oil and no nuts, and that's it. There's hardly anything. I think the cost I think the container costs me more than what's in it. But we get it. We get $9-10. It's unbelievable. And that's good. You got it. You have some things that don't make you as much money as others. That's definitely a part of farming. I don't think anybody makes money on eggplant. But
you got to pick the scapes anyway. So
yeah, but the other warning would be, don't get into. There was a group over in Newport that got into growing flax, and they wanted to show people how to make linen and all these other things, and they were trying to sell vegetables too. It's just like trying to get into keeping cows and sheep on a farm when you're trying to do vegetables. You got to be careful not getting sidetracked too far from something. I mean, if showing people how to make the flax into linen is something that is additive to your experience at the farm, then that's one thing. But you really got to really ask, is it really making us, are we bringing in what we need to? Yeah, that's the other warning. I'd say just constantly watch your bottom line and
don't be too diversified. Stay focused in your area.
Yeah, and kind of watch. Like I said, my idea about the green beans. Nobody grows green beans in my market. Or if they do, they're all picked too late. And I was like, just getting known for something that nobody has the time to do well and then doing it well.
You hand picking those green beans.
Yeah, and also picking zucchini. That's zucchini, the USDA standard, the zucchini should fit sideways in a 1.5 bushel box. I pick it a third of that.
So
it's smaller.
6 inches or so.
It's smaller. It's more delicate. And people say, oh, this is more tender. Whereas, getting into crazy things like picking zucchini flowers, that's a no. It's a no-win. You can't pick enough of them. People won't like them if you drink them too wrinkled. But just watch what you're doing. How can I do it better? Getting a good seeder. We spent years with planter juniors and never could really get that accurate with it. And then we bought the Jang seeders, the Korean ones. That did pretty good. But once we realized what we really needed, and we bought what's called a wizard seeder. And that wizard seed is a vacuum seeder, and that's putting everything down perfectly. I mean, I plant radishes. It's like,
so that's your
looks like
machine,
Starlink across the sky, but they're just boom. It's so investing in a good equipment like a good seeder is probably one of the first things you should buy. Yeah, keep an eye out for, and you don't have to buy big. I think one of the unspoken great markets is there's a ton. Kubota makes a ton of backyard farmer little tractors that have a backhoe on and all this stuff. You can get them for an incredible deal, especially if the old man's too old to run it anymore. You can get this nice little tractor. It's 4-wheel drive, everything. And that's you can get a lot of stuff done with that.
Few years old, low hours, yeah.
Yeah. You get a little rototiller in the back or a flail mower. What's the other thing that we like? We have a BCS, and that flail mower has really been useful because when we're mowing in between winter squash and things are getting a little furry out there with weeds and stuff, we can go through with that flail mower and turn it into coleslaw. And it's a wonderful. It really knocks it back. So we can. We're trying to work on different ways of interseeding grasses and stuff on the sides of the plastic, but we haven't quite got that down yet. But we're working on it. The other big thing about winter growing, and the reason we're so attentive to doing a really good job with it, is that my son is pretty much almost making the same amount of money in the winter markets as we are in the summer markets. When I have 4 tents, he's got 3 little spaces in this place, and he just sells the hell out of everything. And of course, we have sweet potatoes and beets and carrots and all the things that all the other people have this time of year. But the fact that we have fresh greens, we have little Brussels sprouts, we have leeks, we have all that greenery, it just makes people think this is a place where I want to go.
People are itching for something
fresh. But it's the greens that sell the dried stuff, the sweet potatoes and stuff. I don't think we would not sell anywhere half the amount of sweet potatoes if we didn't have the greens.
Interesting.
Half, by sure. And not everybody can afford a steamer, but there's different ways you can do stale seed bed techniques with flamers and stuff, but that's kind of a crazy thing. It was made, we had it made by, what's the name of the equipment, the Mennonite equipment dealer down in Pennsylvania.
AZS, JM Shirk?
No, it's AZS sells through them. They're the, they make all the water wheels and stuff.
No, Rainflow.
Rainflow. So Rainflow will make you a custom water wheel, a spoke every 6 inches, and it's got 4 of them across this big wheel. It's got 4 of them, so they're offset by about 3 inches. So it's this beautiful chevron, and that's how we put in our onions. When we go over a plant, we grow all our onions under plastic, and so we just dibble this over it, and then we just water wheel it in. So in the wintertime, we want everything is 6 inches in a row for our baby bok choy or whatever. So we just roll this thing out and dibbles it perfect. So that little tricks that help make things simple and easy. I say another big thing that's kind of misinterpreted by people or not is sanitation and greenhouse production. Using Clorox or something, just because the bacteria can stay in these little root hairs, and all of a sudden you got a problem. So that's something to watch. Your greenhouse, clean out your plug trays and make sure they're clean. Yeah.
Are there any other mentors or people who have been an inspiration for you?
Well, Elliot Coleman he's the godfather of soil. I had a bunch of great mentors. They taught me along the way, and they were kind of learning at the same time. There's this farmer down here that I really think if you can get a hold of him, he could give you a whole different analysis of way to approach fertility. And he doesn't use any water, and he does fertility and droughts and stuff just by managing his soils unbelievably well. So he's a great mentor of mine, Derek Christensen. I'd say John Cohen. He's one of my heroes. Jack Mannix. He's up there. Mike Collins is the most knowledgeable tomato greenhouse grower I can think of. Dave Marchand is a great historical figure. Paul Harlow Farms up in Vermont. There's a bunch of great ones out there. Justin
Rich.
I always forget his last name. Maybe it's because he's not rich. But he works hard at it.
He is a smart grower, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and then also Jericho Settlers. They're a great group. You know what I like about Jericho Settlers? They'll spend some big money on a piece of equipment, and after 3 years, it's like, nah, this isn't working. Get rid of it. It's like I tend to hang on to things too long. But you can't have that discipline. First in, first out. Something like that. And I just, off the top of my head, I don't know all the people that survived all those washouts and droughts of those horrible rainstorms, but boy, I feel for them. I just don't. If you can say something as a general thing about farming, you really got to analyze and understand what your most important crops are and make sure you put the commensurate amount of attention to making those things come out well. If you get too distracted with growing, I don't know, what's that? What's that southern thing that's a little protuberance that's, they put in jambalaya all the time. I can't think of it. But you're tempted to grow these things like, kiwis and all these other things like that. I can make a little money with kiwi. You don't realize the effort it takes you to get the thing started, get the kiwi, figure out what that needs. You're never going to make enough money out of growing kiwis or a lot of these other different projects. That's why I say to people, what's the two things I should grow? It's like tomatoes and blueberries. It's like you always will have a market. Lettuce and the next down, good lettuce. Good at growing lettuce. Carrots are great. If you grow really good carrots, one of our techniques for growing carrots is we grow a late crop. Since we're so far south here, I can grow a crop we're not harvesting till November 27th or so. We let that crop get a good 26, 25 degree night, a couple of nights. And then we wait a couple of days, and then we harvest them. And the sugar content in those carrots is unbelievable. We hit the spot just right this year. People can't get enough of our carrots. And it's just a dumb old carrot, but yeah.
but a frost sweetened carrot is just so good.
and the shelf life, I mean, the sweetness life, if you want to talk about, it's amazing. So.
And that was the Farmer's Share. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Skip Paul of Wishing Stone Farm. The Farmer's Share is supported by a grant offered by the USDA Specialty Crop Block Program from the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food, and Markets. This funding helps to cover some of my time and travel in order to produce this podcast until March of 2026. The USDA Agricultural Marketing Service supports projects that address the needs of U.S. specialty crop growers and strengthens local and regional food systems. I have no doubt that this podcast will meet those needs and help educate growers to support the industry. If you enjoy this show and want to help support its programming, you can make a one-time or reoccurring donation on our website by visiting thefarmershare.com/support. We also receive funding from the Vermont Vegetable and Berry Growers Association. The VVBGA is a nonprofit organization funded in 1976 to promote the economic, environmental, and social sustainability of vegetable and berry farming in Vermont. Their membership includes over 400 farms across Vermont and beyond, as well as about 50 businesses and organizations that provide products and services of all types to their members. Benefits to members include access to the VVBGA listserv to buy, sell plants and equipment, share farming information, and tap the vast experience of our growers. Access the community accreditation for produce safety, also known as CAPS. This program is designed for growers, by growers, to help you easily meet market and regulatory food safety expectations. You can access the VVBGA's soil health platform, where you can organize all the soil tests and create and store your soil amendment plans and records. Access to webinars for growers in the VVBGA annual meeting. An email subscription to the Vermont Vegetable and Berry newsletter. Camaraderie, enhanced communication, and fellowship among commercial growers. Memberships are on a per farm, per calendar year basis, and annual dues this year are $80. These funds pay for the organization's operating costs and support educational programs and research projects. These funds also support projects that address grower needs around ag engineering, high tunnel production, pest management, pollinators, produce safety, and soil health. Become a member today to be a part of and further support the veg and berry industry. You can visit thefarmershare.com to listen to previous interviews or see photos, videos, or links discussed from the conversation. If you don't want to miss the next episode, enter your email address on our website and you'll get a note in your inbox when the next one comes out. The Farmer's Share has a YouTube channel with videos from several of the farm visits. We're also on Instagram, and that's where you can be reminded about the latest episode or see photos from the visit. Lastly, if you're enjoying the show, I'd love it if you could write a review. In Apple Podcasts, just click on the show, scroll down to the bottom, and there you can leave 5 stars and a comment to help encourage new listeners to tune in. I'd also encourage you to share this episode with other grower friends or crew who you think would be inspiring for them. Thanks for listening.